all stakeholders are becoming very, very cognizant of the fact that sustainability is an opportunity. It needs to be at the core of decision making. It needs to be at the core of education. And that's what we're really seeing.
Hello and welcome to the Anahita Speaker Series presented by Carnegie India, celebrating stirring stories of empowerment, struggle, and success from women professionals in different parts of the globe. Stories we hope are bound to inspire young professionals. I'm Konark Bhandari, Associate Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and today we have with us Ms. Rhea Mazumdar Singhal, founder and CEO of Ecowear, India's largest sustainable packaging company. Due to her pioneering work in transforming the environmental impact of India's packaging industry, Rhea has been appointed a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader and recently was commended with the Nari Shakti Puraskar, the highest civilian honor for women in India. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Rhea. We are honored to have you. Today, we are keen to not just talk about your professional journey as a pioneer woman entrepreneur, but also your personal journey as a mom, a wife, and a sustainability advocate. On that note, I'd like to begin with the first question. How did your childhood, given that you have spent your initial years in Dubai and London, how did those formative years shape you as a person and later in life as an entrepreneur?
Good morning, Konark. Thank you for having me. I am really excited to be with you guys today. That's a very deep question. How did my childhood shape me to become the person that I am today? So I think one of the qualities that I really take a lot of pride in is just the sheer resilience that I have. I have always been, encouraged and taught that if there's something that I want out there, that I just need to go get it. And it's up to me to get it, and there's nothing stopping me except for myself. So I think that's been a key part of my childhood, whether that's been in school, whether that's been in sport, whether that's, been in my career at Pfizer, and has certainly played a huge part of me being an entrepreneur. And I think that I have always pushed myself out of my comfort zone and challenged myself, which is, I think, another key thing. So it was never that I never allowed myself, I suppose, to get comfortable in the space. It was always like, okay, this is what I've achieved, now what more can I do? And I think those are probably a few key things that have played a huge part in shaping me as a person, and my journey.
That's a very interesting answer, given that you've spoken about pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, which dovetails really well into our next question, which is, how did the idea of Ecowear come about? What really prompted you to take action to move to a sector which was still at the time gaining traction, and it's not the easiest sector to really have an impact in?
Sure. So, prior to Ecowear, just to give you a bit of background and context, I'm actually a pharmacologist, and I used to work at Pfizer in the UK. I moved to India in 2009. Funny story, despite my success at Pfizer in the UK, no one would give me a job here because I didn't have an MBA, which kind of steered me away from the pharmaceutical world. And my father-in-law, who is a serial entrepreneur, sort of encouraged me to say, this is something that you could consider. This is an option too. And it's something I'd never explored, right? Just being an entrepreneur. And when I moved here, I think the two things that struck a chord for me was, one, the amount of plastics we were using in this country so freely, so openly, eating out of it. But yet we were talking about healthy food. But yet, the packaging that we ate out of didn't complement that. And second was that we had no waste management. like formal waste management, right? We threw all our waste in one dustbin, which was honestly archaic to me because like I haven't, as an adult, that's not how I was used to living my life since I'd spent most of my time abroad. And obviously all this waste ends up in our ever-growing landfills. So the idea of that, wanting to solve for that, was basically how Ecowear came about. And I think the three key pillars that have been, the basis of our foundation, continue to be the basis of our growth, is one, safety, right? So we wanted to create something that was safe for humanity to consume their food out of, and safe for the environment, so it didn't harm people or planet. The second was purpose. So we wanted to create impact, employment, environmental, health impact. And the third was authenticity. So I wanted to make sure that Ecowear was seen, was differentiated from all the greenwash that's out there, and was really seen as that authentic, innovative partner, committed to actually solving for this problem. So that's how Ecowear came about at that time.
I just wanted to pick up on a few threads which emerged in that answer. You spoke about you had strong family support. In the earlier answer, you spoke about sort of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, and also having a purpose and having impact. Do these things dovetail into being an entrepreneur? I guess what I'm asking here is, earlier you've also mentioned that you've learned not to take things personally while conducting business in India. Is that a part and parcel of being an entrepreneur? And how has this strong backing from your family and having a purpose played in that?
So I think family support has been absolutely crucial, not, from shaping me to who I am today, to obviously also helping me, embark on this path as an entrepreneur. So that's been critical for me. I can safely say that I wouldn't have been able to navigate India and doing business in India without my father-in-law's support. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anything teaches you, or any textbook teaches you, how to be an entrepreneur in India. And more so, I think, a woman entrepreneur. So when you talk about not taking things personally, that was sort of the context that I was coming from. That I think business is business and it needs to be done. And that's just the way it is. So I've learned to be really thick-skinned. I've learned to laugh at, more than I was probably used to. And I think things shouldn't faze you easily, because you are constantly navigating the unknown, right? Whether you start on your journey or whether you become an established entrepreneur, you're just constantly moving forward in the unknown. And as you grow and as your organization grows, there's obviously many livelihoods that depend on you and the decisions that you make and your senior leadership team makes. So I think it's, you've got to be thick-skinned when you're conducting business.
As you mentioned earlier as well, sustainability is something which you picked upon quite early on. But the road to sustainability is actually, quite long. I mean, there seems to be a lot more which could be done in this particular sphere. I guess my question here is, you've spoken about people should avoid getting greenwashed when it comes to talking about sustainability. Could you elaborate a bit on this concept of greenwashing?
So let me just start by telling you what sustainability means to me, right? It means, for me personally, it means intergenerational well-being. So what that means is us as a generation meeting our needs without compromising that of the future generation, right? Which I honestly don't think we have done very well. And we've, got to quickly, at the rate at which climate change is accelerating, I think we've got to quickly correct our ways and get on this corrective path. So I think that's sustainability, and that's what it means. And I think that, when you talk about, sorry, what was the second part of your question? I forgot. Apologies.
It was about greenwashing, essentially. What is the concept of greenwashing?
Fundamentally, the reason that greenwash exists is because there's a lack of education and awareness, right? From a manufacturer perspective, from a trader perspective, from a consumer perspective, from a decision maker perspective. So it's multi-stakeholder, right? And I think that, greenwash, we're at a point where we can't afford to be greenwashed. We really can't. So I honestly would encourage anyone who is putting forth a solution or making a business decision that revolves around sustainability, for them to actually understand the impact, right? So for us, for instance, with Ecowear, we were really clear that it had to be a closed loop solution. We don't have waste management, we don't have waste segregation, so if I brought a product to market, I don't want to rely on somebody to collect it, for a homeowner to segregate it, and then for us to have it, for it to hopefully end up in an industrial composting facility, right? And that's the beauty behind Ecowear, so that once it comes in contact with soil, wherever it is, it will naturally break down. So that's what I mean by, staying away from the greenwash and actually introducing closed loop solutions. So that's one thing as an innovator. The other, as I think like I touched upon, is that we actually have the right amount of education and awareness across stakeholders so that we are working collectively to make the right decisions and act the right way.
I again wanted to go back to this role of an entrepreneur. The life of an entrepreneur is supposed to be quite lonely. It's quite challenging, quite formidable. And I wanted to basically, dive a bit deeper into this and, note your social media bio, which essentially says that you are a mom first and an entrepreneur then later on, an impact entrepreneur afterwards. How do you reflect on both these roles in your life?
So obviously, chronologically, I think Ecowear is my first baby because the kids came after that. But, for me, nothing beats being a mom. So that is my front and center. It's really exciting. As the kids have grown up, they're a very integral part of what we do. They motivate me. They come to the factory, they see what we're doing. We've conducted workshops at their school where we've helped 12th graders work on entrepreneurship. We've educated around sustainability. So we're very engaged in sort of their lives and, shaping and making sure that sustainability is a part of that. And I have to say, like, when I'm at speaking events and, my kids are in the audience, you could have 3,000 people, but those two little minions are the ones that make me the most nervous because they're listening to everything. Like I said, it is, and it's not just about sustainability, but I suppose for me, it's also about the gender part. We have a son and a daughter, and it's really important that as a mother that I show them that you can work, you can do everything, you can run a home, you can be a mom, you can do whatever you want to do, right? And, also just how supportive we are as a family of each other, whether it is the parents, the in-laws, my husband, everyone is, and everyone pitches together to make sure that it all works seamlessly.
That's perfect, because my next question was just going to be about the role your husband has played in your professional, entrepreneurial pursuits. You mentioned earlier how he works very closely with you. I guess my question here is, how is it like working with your spouse on an initiative you're really passionate about?
So I have to say, yes, my husband and I work on Ecowear together, but even when we had separate sort of career paths, I think he's been extremely encouraging, very motivating, and always kind of pushed me and just supportive of whatever I've wanted to do, whether I've said, I want to scale my career path, or I want to take a break and I don't want to work. But with Ecowear, it's really funny because I was doing an interview with Suchitra Ella and we had this whole conversation about working with your spouse. And it was an interesting point because we realized that there's absolutely no academia out there that teaches you how to work with your spouse. And it's a lot of sort of trial and error. But I have to say that I think to work on something that you are passionate about alongside someone who shares that same amount of passion is a great driving force. It makes you feel that anything is achievable. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed. And I think that The great thing is that no one can poach him, so that's also a nice feeling. And sure, there is conflict, but we've learned to call it constructive conflict, because ultimately the end goal for both of us remains the same, because we share that same passion and we are aligned on our vision. So yeah.
Sure. Switching gears for now, essentially, so you've spoken in a lot of articles about the role of women in manufacturing. And what do you have to say about the current role of women in the larger Indian manufacturing sector? How are they represented overall?
So I have to say, I kind of, I got sort of, I gathered interest in the space because I'm part of the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industries, their national network on women empowerment. And I led a whole study about, I think 3 years ago now, on women in manufacturing. I mean, we own our own manufacturing facility in Greater Noida. So this is something that was kind of close to me, to understand, certainly what we can and what we're doing as an SME, but also, I suppose, what the larger scale industries are doing as well. And we realized a few things, Konark, and it was an eye-opener for me, so that, when you look at one of the things that you look at, right, really simply, is when your board results, the exam results are announced, the toppers are women, are girls, but we don't see them come into manufacturing. And so it kind of started making us think, why, what are we losing them to? And then we sort of also engaged with large scale industries, employers, manufacturing facilities, and across India. And we understood that there's a huge cultural divide as well, right? So what is considered normal and safe in the South is probably not what's happening in the North, and similar with the East and the West. And it was, one of the things that we realized is that we need to do more about STEM. We need to do more around the fact that we need to showcase that there is opportunity in manufacturing, right? And it's not, and it's a safe space for women to work as a manufacturing facility. There are opportunities to grow. There are opportunities to move up and basically grow your career path. And I think as an employer, also there are things that you can do. So you engage with local community and colleges to draw these women in. You have safety protocols that you invest in, whether it is transport, whether it's accommodation, whether it's flexible working hours. So one of the things that we do is that we obviously run a night shift and a day shift at our facility, but the women don't work the night shift. They only work the day shift. We have things like equal pay that we've introduced, which apparently is not that common, and those are the kind of, and you kind of bring out sort of a safe leveling environment for women to join manufacturing. And at our facility, it's great, because when we started, we had 100% men join. I mean, Greater Noida, UP, and we've kind of built a lot of trust and confidence as employers, and we've got more women come in now. They typically come in at the packaging department, because that's sort of a safe space where you're sitting down counting, you're going through quality control. But what's great to see now is there are more women using operating machines, which is what we wanted, and we wanted to encourage. And that's something that that's a culture change at the facility that we're constantly working on as a senior leadership team.
I guess the follow-up question here would be naturally that despite the role played by Ecowear and entrepreneurs like you to promote the role of women in Indian manufacturing, why has the overall trend of women participation in the labor workforce remained at fairly low levels? And what do you think could be done to optimize this to higher levels? I know it's a bit of a technical question, but if you have any thoughts on this, what could other enterprises be doing in addition to what Ecowear has done?
Oh, we have lots of thoughts on this. How long have we got? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I think that we were making progress, very slow progress, but we certainly were pre-COVID. I don't think COVID has helped, because the impact of COVID has not been gender neutral. Whether you look at manufacturing, whether you look at just women contributing to the economy and workforce, right? I think it's been, I genuinely feel that the progress we made has been reversed. And I think we're at a point that we have to work even harder to encourage our women to get back to contribute to the work, to contribute to the economy, right? So I think that it's a little, it's not easy. The landscape is definitely quite complicated because we are also a very diverse country. So if you're looking at women in sort of working in the corporates, I think it's encouraging things like flexible working hours, working from home, being supportive of things like that, lean-in circles, whether you're looking at, it's just a new working environment at the moment. So it's being supportive, and especially if you've got kids and they're schooling from home, it's not the easiest thing to manage for sure. I think we're looking at women in terms of again in sort of at the manufacturing, and you're looking at blue-collar workers. I think that we've got to actively bring these women out. Again, like I said, and I think a lot of it has to do with creating a safe working environment, because I think that's something that manufacturing is not deemed as safe. It's not your traditional, working space. It's not where typically opportunity is seen. And I think we've got to change that mindset as employers. And I think you can only do that when you engage with your local community. So that's something that, I would encourage everybody to actively do. I think, things like flexible working hours and Ecowear are basic, and I think we should be doing that anyway. And I think that, also the other thing that is important is the fact that we've got women in senior leadership that help shape the culture, right, of the overall workspace, and help make it easier for women, wherever they might be in that organization, to grow, to upskill, to basically to increase their contribution. So I think these are the few things that we should be doing, certainly.
This segues again well into the next question I was going to ask you, which is about, you've spoken about how, what are the hindrances for women who are in the larger labor workforce, but what about entrepreneurs like yourself at the very top? Can you name a few notable challenges you faced over the years in conducting business?
So thank you. I'm very flattered that you think I'm an entrepreneur at the very top, but I'm really not yet. But look, I think that challenges are a constant. When I started my journey, I was 27 years old. I didn't know anything about Delhi. I didn't know much about India, and I certainly had not lived here as an adult or worked here as a professional. So it was just, like I said, a lot of navigating through the unknown for me. My Hindi wasn't great. I was starting a business, a new concept, a new industry that no one had even heard of. So you can imagine setting up a consumer business, convincing generational traders that they should ditch plastic, move to Ecowear. I think was definitely challenging. I think that recently what I lobby for, and I'm constantly sort of, screaming from the rooftop for, is one, I think that women entrepreneurs require a lot more support and encouragement. There's so many of us out there that want to do things. And I think that even what we went through during COVID, Konark, like when we look at financial packages that were announced, when we look at relief that was announced, we saw a lot of businesses led by women dissolve just because a lot of that aid never reached them, right? And I can tell you how hard it's been for us, because out of 120 people team, 90 people are blue-collared workers, and our priority was always to protect our team. And that's something that, we've really kind of worked hard at, and we didn't let go of anybody. We didn't have to, conduct pay cuts. And we worked really hard to make sure that our 120 people remained our 120 people, especially those 9 people, that no one was impacted, or that we could minimize impact as much as possible. So I think that as women entrepreneurs, I think there's so much more that could be done, whether it is encouraging women through entrepreneurship, whether it is, just different forms of education, because I think as an entrepreneur, you just have to learn to do everything from deliveries to packaging to, to selling to understanding your P&L, and you might not have all those skills. So this constant education, I think, is extremely important as support. And I think to be recognized and to be, to be encouraged ultimately.
So what is the future of sustainability really in India, and how do you see it evolving vis-a-vis the other countries in the world? Is there more promise here do you see more promise here in India as opposed to overseas when it comes to the sustainability movement?
So I have to say that I think we're really excited. We had a plastic ban come in on the 1st of July, right? That's kind of caused a lot of conversations. It's brought sustainability to the forefront, right? So we're really hoping that brings about the change that we need to see. Globally, and when I started, none of my stakeholders understood what biodegradable, compostable, etc. meant. We're seeing that shift. We're seeing a lot of hunger around sustainability, and it's across generations, which I think is fantastic. We're seeing sustainability come into conversations, whether you don't look into large FMCG companies looking at how we can make our supply chains more sustainable, or we can even all the way across the spectrum to schools and colleges. So I'm really excited about India and sustainability and what that, because I think there's a lot that we can achieve. And I really hope that the energy doesn't die down. I hope that we continue to engage in conversations, and it's not just like a ban's come in, so let's talk about it and we'll forget about it. I think that, all stakeholders are becoming very, very cognizant of the fact that sustainability is an opportunity. It needs to be at the core of decision making. It needs to be at the core of education. And that's what we're really seeing. Now, globally, yes, of course, we're seeing a lot more. We're also seeing plastic bans come across the world globally. I think that we assume maybe that there's a lot more education and awareness, but I think that's not necessarily the case. I think as India, I'm really, I genuinely believe in India, we have what it takes to create that change, to move away from rampant consumerism to conscious consumerism. We've always been a frugal society, right? And I think it's a part of us. It's a part of our culture. So I think that we can show the world how it's done ultimately.
So Rhea, you spoke about how the stakeholders all have to be conscious, and you spoke about conscious consumerism. I guess the next question here would be, do you see a difference in terms of how the consumers in tier 1 cities consume as opposed to, say, in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Is there a difference? Do you see, these choices impacting sustainability in India?
Look, so I think when we look at, I like to look at it from a consumerism point of view, right? Whether we're like conscious versus rampant. Obviously in tier 1, perhaps tier 2, you would definitely see a lot more rampant consumerism, right? We have access to so much, everything is there, it's instant, so why not? I think that's probably different in tier 3. And, I think that, like I said, this responsible way of living is very much a part of, is ingrained in our culture, ingrained in our heritage and our sort of, our like across generations. So I think that it's there. Some of us have forgotten about it, and we need to remind ourselves that not everything is about, convenience and instance, and sometimes it's okay to say no to a plastic bag, say no to the plastic straw. Say no to plastic balloons at your child's next birthday party. Those are the kind of things that we need to remind ourselves of. I would hope that with a strong educational drive, with awareness, with continuous conversations around this space, that it's something that we achieve.
I think we're inching closer towards the end of our Anahita episode, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this one question, which is essentially if you have one piece of advice for women entrepreneurs who are trying to balance, family, work, and various other pulls and pushes, what would be that one nugget of wisdom which you would have to offer to such aspiring entrepreneurs?
So I think firstly, I'd just like to tell all of these women entrepreneurs out there that you're not alone. The struggle is real. We're all out there. We might not know each other, but there's plenty of us doing the same thing, fighting the same cause, and trying to jump over the same hurdles, basically. And I think that some of the things that have worked for me are, and I've learned this the hard way, is use your voice. If you don't ask, you don't get. It's something I don't think us as women, and especially women entrepreneurs, are used to doing. So that's something that I would suggest. And also, one of the key things for me is this: just biggest injustice is not to try. So if you've got something you want to do, go out and do it. As long as you're constantly learning and evolving, you're moving forward, and nothing is actually a failure. And that's something that holds me together on some of my toughest days. And I think the third is you can have it all. You can do whatever you want to do, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Some really wise words to end the Anahita episode with. But I guess thank you, Rhea, for joining us today. And thank you so much for sharing your views and insights. I hope our audience enjoyed this episode as well. And do subscribe to Carnegie India's YouTube channel to hear more such inspiring stories. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Panak.